you're buying an NFT, you're not buying the right to view. It's
Yeah.
publicly viewable. You are buying the right to ownership of that piece, to the history of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're buying. And
Yeah.
that allows you to then sell it in a marketplace for its full value because they can trace that history from your purchase back to the original creator and verify that, yes, this is authentic, this is real. The artist signed it, and that there gives it, its value.
I live unbanked off of cryptocurrency, and I use Bitrefill extensively because it lets me pay with crypto at places that don't yet accept it directly. This one service, more than any other, helps me live on crypto, pay your prepaid phone bill, or buy gift cards to thousands of major retailers around the world, all with cryptocurrency, including for exact amounts so you don't have to buy more gift credit than you need for a specific purchase. You can use Bitrefill without an account, but if you get an account, you can earn rewards points, which translate to savings, and you can also hold a balance denominated in dollars or euros to protect yourself against market crashes. Go to bitrefill.com, click Create Account, and enter the referral code DCN, or follow the link in the description. Hey everyone, I have the wonderful pleasure of once again speaking to the one and only CryptoStache. How's it going, man?
Yeah, what's going on, Joel?
Yeah, just not much. I just got caught up in the moment of crypto boomerism where I'm just minding my own business and people start freaking out at me about NFTs. I know kind of what they are, but it's one of those like, oh, is that the new Vines and the TikToks that the kids these days are doing kind of thing? And then at some point I start seeing like, what is it, Taco Bell selling NFTs? And I'm just like, maybe I should look into this a little bit, I don't want to be one of those like, old man yells at NFT in a few years. So, legend has it that you're someone who actually knows quite a bit about this stuff. And I did see a video you make about the value, which was, coincided a little bit with the video I was making about a potential value. But it was more speaking conceptually and not like super in detail. So, would you mind telling for the viewers at home? Obviously, NFT stands for non-fungible token. But like, first off, what is it? Like, what is it for? Do you know anything about the history of them? Like, what would be the first NFT or like that kind of stuff? So like, what is an NFT in like the super short version?
Yes, I know all the NFTs.
Yes, that have ever created.
Ever created. Yes, that is true. So yeah, what it stands for doesn't really mean jack shit to really anybody. A non-fungible token just means something unique. House and house are not the same. Like you can't like just yeah, it's a house. Who cares? It's the same thing.
I've seen
But
some fungible
penny
houses
and penny
though,
are the same thing. They mean the same thing. They're worth the same thing. Or one Bitcoin and one Bitcoin are fungible. They're the same thing. NFT is just a unique digital item, and a lot of times they're very collectible.
Yeah. So first off, when was the first NFT or thing to be thought of as NFT? Like, is there a specific time when this started popping up? Was it on Ethereum? Was it like CryptoKitties and stuff, or like when is the first thing we could call like an NFT that you can kind of remember?
So I mean, really, the real first true NFTs were CryptoPunks, and it was on Ethereum. And they didn't get a lot of fanfare in the beginning. NFTs really didn't come onto the scene really until the end of 2017 with CryptoKitties, and that's when people were like, "Oh, this is crazy! This is cool." And so I had saw CryptoPunks in that during that year as well, and I was just like, "Yeah, they're like little pixel dudes, like that's cool," but it wasn't really like anything. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is impressive! I need to get these." And people did. They had, at one time they were even giving them away for free. So. But now they're like one of the most high dollar valued NFT out there, and trading for 20, 30, 50 ETH at a time, and definitely very highly valued in the community. So that's kind of how they got started. CryptoKitties really is the one that put it on the map, I would say, but they were not the first.
Yeah, man, that's big boy bucks now, and so it seems to be getting another like I think that people sort of viewed CryptoKitties. I mean, obviously fans thought it was cool and traded it, but like a lot of people looking outside that's like the Sodom and Gomorrah moment of crypto where it's just like the crazy excess of 2017 where everyone just bidding on these little like worthless things and then they crash and go away. And oh, remember CryptoKitties? That was like, oh, you know, stuff got crazy. But now the CryptoKitty ethos is sort of back with a vengeance, more or less, right? And so now it's just like, oh, maybe we misunderstood something about that back then, that it was a huge deal, and we just thought it was like a stupid cat thing. And so, first, when we're talking about NFTs, uh, what's the anatomy of an NFT? So, for example, like a cryptocurrency token of like a fungible token is pretty easy to see. It's just like either inputs and outputs in like UTXO currencies or, you know, a balance in, you know, Ethereum style things. But it's just like, that's it. You move coins back and forth. What technical details are attached to an NFT that, you know, make it different from like an, you know, an FT, basically?
Hmm. I mean, really, the simple answer is just metadata.
Mm-hmm.
So there's extra metadata included with an NFT. You know, things that tie that particular, you know, entity on the blockchain with extra data. So data for a photo, data for other things,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what, you know, token standard you're minting that NFT on. On Ethereum, there are, you know, a couple,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, then you look at some of the other NFT platforms, and there's a couple on some of these other ones too. But yeah, in general, you know, it really just comes down to extra metadata.
Mm-hmm. What kinds of metadata have you seen as in NFTs? I think the most common one is just like references to a image or something, right?
Well, that's one you have to have if you have an NFT. Otherwise, there's no you know, asset there to really represent what that data means.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that one's pretty much hard coded in there. But other ones are like, well, rarity. How rare is this? You know, is it a legendary level or what? And you can use that data for things, or you know, traits like we're talking about CryptoKitties before. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the metadata for each, you know, kitty for breeding purposes is all included there. So does it have a dolly? Does it have googly eyes? Does it have spot? You know,
Mm.
so all that data is all included there.
Yeah, and so I think that what people struggle, older generation people especially, right? Seems like, you know, the younger the generation is, the more they just automatically get it rather than just have to wrap their head around it. And it seems like the thing that a lot of people don't get is, why does it actually have value? And the thing, anything, of course, with that has value has is scarce, and people, put value on it, which, compounds the price and it goes up. So when you're seeing the price go up, obviously this is a scarce thing. Obviously people value it. Now, so like, let's just take the example of an artwork, right? Say I make a cool, like this one behind me, right? I make one of these, and that is like a limited edition print of whatever. Let's just say I put that out there, and someone buys it, and they buy it with, it's an NFT. It's associated with an NFT. The token is completely rare, right? There's only one of them, and someone owns the token that represents that. The
Mhm.
actual image itself can be, the file on the, artist's computer or whatever, can be copied infinitely, and that part is therefore not necessarily fungible. So the reason why or it is fungible rather. So the reason why a physical artwork is rare is because there can only be one of those physical items. You can make representations of them, but they're different. Whereas the actual image associated with the NFT can be completely fungible amongst the others, but the NFT itself is not. So that's the thing I think a lot of people have a hard time reconciling. So I don't know. What's your take on that?
So there's a vital piece you're missing there, Joel. So and
Yes.
what it comes down to is artist intent.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am the creator of this piece and
Yeah.
I say I am putting my piece up for sale, here it is on, you know, on Ethereum, here's the NFT. I have now digitally signed it saying this is the original. The original is
Mm.
not the shit on my computer. I don't
Yeah.
care what's on my computer. The original is this one. I have signed it digitally, just like if you did a physical piece, you signed it yourself and said this is the original one. But
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you make prints of it and you sign those yourself too, right there on the spot as people buy
Yeah.
them. So when you talk about, oh, well, it could be on the computer and that means there's thousands of copies. I mean, I don't know why you would do that as an artist and devalue yourself when
Of
you've
course.
already signed it digitally saying, no, this is the one that I'm selling. This is the original. This is the one that matters. And you can trace it back to me. The
Mm-hmm.
intent of the artist, what the artist says is what matters, right? That's a huge part of this. If I'm a painter and I paint something traditionally, I put up, but I don't sign it ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does that mean that it's technically still a work by me that can be verified by, an art collector? It's going to be a hell of a lot harder, isn't it, to trace
Mm-hmm. Of
that back
course.
because there's no signature on it. Maybe they can see like, oh yes, the brush strokes, definitely that's a Stash original.
Mm-hmm.
But without that signature, you
Yeah.
don't really know. And so it's a lot easier to forge art physically and signatures physically than it is to forge something digitally, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the artist's intent, what he says, makes the difference here.
Yeah, and so that kind of, I think a lot of people will, have an easier time wrapping their head around it at this point because that is a scarce item, is the artist and the piece of the artist. It's not necessarily the artwork itself that can be reproduced everywhere. It's the artist put this in here. Their intent is scarce, unless of course they just make a million NFTs. Like say, hey, this is like I only made one ever for this original, and then like 5 years later, they're like, you know what, I got some bills to pay, and they make like 20 extra, and then sell those, and it devalues the original. But who cares at that point? But as you mentioned, that's not a smart move on the part of the artist. That they're going to be a little, they're gonna
Right.
screw their own value.
Yeah, just like if a physical painter did a one of one, sold it
Mm-hmm.
to somebody for $10,000, and then 5 years later went and exactly copied that same exact painting, brushstroke for brushstroke, and it was perfect copies, and
Mm-hmm.
signed those two and saying they're original and then put them out. I mean, that would be devastating to a traditional artist too. That's why you don't see people doing that unless they're trying to forge a piece of artwork that's not theirs, which you see a lot in
Mm-hmm.
traditional art and lots of other things, collectibles, high-end digital, high-end physical pieces that people trade or collect. You can't do that on the blockchain. And so that is actually a pretty big aspect of that too, is that the history is there. So when you say, oh well, anybody could see this, and that's a fact. You're not, when you're buying an NFT, you're not buying the right to view.
Mm.
That's where a lot of people get confused. You're not buying the right to view this thing. Anybody can view it. It's
Yeah.
publicly viewable. You are buying the right to ownership of that piece, to the history of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're buying. And that
Yeah.
allows you to then sell it in a marketplace for its full value because they can trace that history from your purchase back to the original creator and verify that yes, this is authentic, this is real. The artist signed it, and that there gives it, its value.
Yeah, and so that definitely makes a lot of sense, especially if you consider like an original mint. That an NFT, I guess, on its own has no value because it's just a unique token. That if it's not attached to a thing, it is what it is, right? But if it's
Well, I mean,
attached,
you can't
yeah,
have an NFT not attached to a thing. So,
yeah,
you can't just create something that's an NFT that's not attached to anything. So that's not really possible.
yeah. So
It
could
would just
you?
be a digital file at that point.
So then the technical limitations of an NFT, you have to attach it to a file of some kind, like a text file or an image file or something. Is that right? Otherwise, you can't just create a token.
Right. There has to be some sort of something to tell you. You can't just like go and create an NFT with no backing image or
Mm.
no something that represents it visually. It doesn't, you can't just like code something like, oh, it's an NFT, but there's nothing attached to it. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't buy that. I don't know if you would, but
Yeah,
that would not ever show up in my wallet. I can't see it. No one else can see it. Why the hell would someone buy a blank nothing?
yeah. It's
Unless
so
that was your intention, like blank canvas, there's nothing here, but you would still need a blank file. So you can't create NFTs on any of the platforms really without doing that. Now, if you wanted to code your own smart contract in some sort of weird way, possibly you could pull that off, but I don't know what your advantage would be there. So I think that would be pointless, and I haven't seen anybody do that. So.
yeah, that would be kind of more of like an ICO of one than an actual NFT. Like a one token ICO that just has one token. It's not represented. Yeah, so it
Right.
makes.
And the tokens work differently. So when you talk about tokens and you keep talking about tokens, if you're referring to like ERC20 tokens on
Mm-hmm,
Ethereum, ERC20 is a standard for tokens.
mm-hmm,
NFTs don't work on that. They work on 721 or 1155. Those are the two NFT standards
mm-hmm.
for Ethereum. And those are both official standards, and they have requirements that you have to be able to use those standards and submit them. So
Yeah, so when we're talking about, like for example, artwork, right? You create an artwork. The first mint, when you create it, you mint an NFT out of it, and then other people take the image file and share it all over the internet, and then they're just viewing the the artist's work, but the original mint, and so that NFT then is associated with the absolute original. Now, what do you think of what I would call like retroactive NFTs? Like for example, say Jack Dorsey, he tweets a bunch of times, and then he just one of these original tweets, he's like, oh, by the way, even though I issued this years ago, now I'm just going to attach an NFT to it, like make it an NFT out of it, I guess, and then just sell it, even though it's not my original tweet, even though it is my original tweet, but it's like years later. I'm just gonna like make a unique thing after that. What do
Hmm.
you think of that? Does that do anything for the value or dilute the value? I mean, obviously the price is whatever people are willing to pay, right? But do you think that that is something that's we're going to see, over the course of the evolution of this, is people just making retroactive NFTs to other things, or do you think it'll trend more in just like the initial like originality kind of thing? Like as soon as they create it, they mint an NFT and then they just like that's it. That's the first. It was there at the beginning.
No, I don't see that as being kind of really the future of things. And to be perfectly honest, it's just like, well, a painter
Mm-hmm.
painted something 5 years ago, and he's just now deciding to release it into an art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I finished. All right, quick, get that shit up on the wall and sell it now.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're saying. It would be the same thing with an NFT. Like as soon as you're
Mm-hmm.
done, it needs to be up, and the intention of it was to create an NFT. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to like selling tweets, I'm not a big fan of that in particular.
Yeah.
But I did just feature it on the NFT beat. We talked about that and pros and cons. I won't be selling any of my tweets. I think it's a little bit silly, but Jack is doing it for charity, which is kind of a cool
Of
way to
course.
highlight what's going on. Taking past content that you've created in some, whether it's written form or visual form, in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and then deciding you want to create an NFT out of it a year or two later. I don't really see an issue with that. There's lots of new people coming into the space who have amazing works, very great stuff that maybe they've never published, or maybe they have, or or maybe this is like their first foray, so they want to try and jump in and mint those. I don't see an issue with minting NFT based on works that you created, in the past.
Yeah, and so the thing with a tweet is especially an interesting thing because if Jack made his tweet, this is his tweet, he's selling the original, copied tweet, whatever. He's selling it. Now, what happens? Like, I'm thinking about old school tweets. They would have a lot of like historical value. Like, let's say Hal Finney's running Bitcoin tweet. That's a great candidate for an NFT. But Hal can't sell it because he can't mint an NFT because he's unfortunately no longer with us. Now, what if someone created an Hal Finney tweet NFT? What do you think about that for like value? Because it's clearly not him. It's clearly like it's just some other guy saying, "Hey, Hal's tweet. I made an NFT. Here you go."
Well, I mean, technically that would be kind of just stealing it,
Yeah.
with the platform that they have through Cent,
Mm-hmm.
that does this tweet, into NFT things. You as the owner of that account that they're trying to make an NFT out of that tweet, you have to approve that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like anybody can just go on that platform and start doing it. Now, once again, if they just like did it independently on their own, like really not much to stop them from doing so. Just you're an asshole, I guess. That's really all I
Yeah,
can.
like someone taking a Mona Lisa print and saying like, "This
Right,
is
and we've seen
mine."
that already.
Yeah.
Binance Punks launched, about a month or so ago, and they just straight stole all of the art from the original CryptoPunks
Mm-hmm.
and just stuck it on Binance Smart Chain and was selling them. They had no, it was not the original team. It's not their original work, and so. But the thing is that copyright is an incredibly hard thing to pursue, anyways. So doing it online digitally is even harder. There's no recourse for things like that. So you do have to be very careful, and but at the same time, it comes down to the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're stupid enough to fall for something like that, thinking that's the only one, and you didn't do your research, nothing about NFTs, and you think, oh, these are the greatest things ever, I'm going to buy them here instead because they're cheaper or
Mm.
something, like that's on you, man. But I would never support something like that. It's like buying a forged copy of someone else's art, and I'm not really interested in doing that.
Yeah. Has there been any fallout from that in the short term? I mean, I know it's relatively recent, but like, have we seen the Binance copies like start to get not valued very, like the price start to crash of the is like they stopped being able to sell these things, or is it just still we're still kind of dealing with, oh, they're getting away with it for now, and then over time maybe the value will go down I just haven't kept up with that story.
I'm not like I've not looked at the price of
Mm-hmm.
them, so I'm not really sure if they've gone up or down in value. I mean, I haven't heard of like there's no like legal action or something
Of
going on.
course.
There's no way for you to take them down. It's not like, oh my gosh, we're going to ban them from our public blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, it's just in bad taste, but there's really not much else you can do.
Yeah, so we're talking about like the value and what you can do with it. Obviously, I started seeing like Ken Bozak putting out, bless his heart, putting out a ton of these things, and it's interesting because it's a lot of like visual representations of him, not necessarily directly created by him,
Mhm.
and he's selling them all. So it's not like an artwork like I created this artwork. It's someone else created an artwork of me, and I'm certifying it as part of me, and I got a whole bunch more coming out. And that's where I think a lot of people start to like, because again, this is a new thing, right? There's always been physical scarcity of other things in the world, but the specific token concept of like a token of scarcity is something that people's minds are still being blown by, right? They're going to have to take years to adjust to like the new possibilities. So, like, what do you think of the value of something like that, where it's kind of an artwork, it's a visual representation, but the person who's issuing it is not the creator thereof of the visual part of it, but they are the creator of the NFT itself. So, I don't know. Do you want to just talk about what you think of that being valued? Because I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of a different situation, but when it comes down to it, I mean, its intention and purpose,
Mm,
is for promotional value and support. So, you have lots of people and lots of projects, marketing, things like that,
mm-hmm.
for all kinds of major brands where, they have created these things in promotion of their brand. And it's not like, the dude who owns Taco Bell created those Taco Bell NFTs himself. They
Mm-hmm.
were created for promotional purposes, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I just featured, the Terra Ventura app, who they're going to be doing some Godzilla versus King Kong NFTs for that upcoming movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not the original creators of the Godzilla King Kong assets. I'm sure they're going to be using for the NFTs. The people from Legendary Entertainment are. And so, I think that we're going to start seeing a lot more partnerships and things like that. And, in particular, what Ken is doing is really, more of like a collaboration thing where he's giving credit to the artist and he's also splitting, those
Mm-hmm.
proceeds with this artist. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a great way to be able to support up and coming artists and to be able to do things that, help to further your brand, promote your brand, but also to support what they're doing in general. I like Kim Bozak. I like what he
Mm-hmm.
does. I want to support him in some sort of way instead of Kim Bozak creating his OnlyFans page and showing his cock off to a bunch of people.
Which
He
has
can just
probably
create some
happened before.
NFTs. He can create some NFTs and they can support him that way, or they don't have to go to Patreon or some of these other places where they're taking your percentage
Mm-hmm.
of all of your support. So there's a lot of ways that you can look at that,
Mm.
and why people would want to create NFTs for multiple different reasons. Art is just scratching the surface of what NFTs can do. So that's the easiest application, and that's why we're seeing an explosion and so many people doing it, because it's just super easy. You can stick any piece of trash
Mm-hmm.
up as an NFT, mint it for free on a lot of these platforms, and try and sell it. Most of it sucks, but a lot of times there are some really good stuff in there too, and you have to but it comes down to the eye of the beholder. Maybe something I think sucks, you really love,
Of course.
and that's going to be that. Or maybe even though the art itself does suck, but you really support that creator, and you're like, hey, if I purchase this for $1, I'm helping to support this dude who I like, his content, stuff he's doing.
Mm.
So I think that there are multiple aspects, and purposes for NFTs. They're not just about fine art or artists that do, original works only.
Yeah. And so before we jump into that bit for a bit, you mentioned something about splitting the profits, and I did hear something about like a profit splitting inbuilt mechanism in NFTs. Do you want to kind of educate the people a little bit on that bit? Like when you transfer them, there's like a part goes to the original creator or something. I've heard that mentioned before.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's different on every platform. That's kind of the hard thing, is like I could
Mm-hmm.
say, but it's different on every platform. Every platform has their own way that they've built that in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's ways that you can, set royalties on most of the platforms. So, after the original sale, the
Mm-hmm.
person who bought that original piece, when they sell it again, the original creator gets a percentage, whatever they may have set for that, particular item. Some places allow you to set it. Some places have a standard or a minimum or maximum that you can do, and some places don't have that feature at all. So it really just comes down to what marketplace you're using, what blockchain. But most of the good ones do have a royalty like that. What I was actually talking about is not just the royalties, but can will specifically split all the sales, the original sales, with them up front. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good way for these artists to get exposure, but also get some pretty good sales and stuff like that. For there are things that they're doing that maybe they're just not on that same level of I wouldn't say influencer, but on that same level of popularity, right?
Yeah, of reach.
Reach, yeah, popularity, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, yeah, and that does remind me. We're talking about the like support a creator kind of thing, like better than OnlyFans in case, unless that's what you're really into with them. But like, um, but way back in the day, previous lifetime, I used to work at nonprofit fundraising, and it would be crazy to see how much someone's giving level would go up if you gave him an exclusive little thing along with that.
Mhm.
Like, for example, new cufflinks, branded cufflinks that you could probably get made anywhere, but if you can only get it by being a supporter of this level, it's like you'd be willing to pay astronomically higher amounts of money just to be in the cool kids club. And I guess the NFT is like a digital version of that people might not be like, okay, well, I don't, do I have any place in my house to display this item? Maybe not. Do I have, a suit with like cufflinks that I can actually wear? Maybe not. But I do have a computer and do have a smartphone or whatever. I can just still receive a unique collectible to that kind of a thing. Uh, now, has there been much traction, or what do you think of the possibilities of kind of pairing NFTs with something more than the NFT itself, whether it be, let's just say, if you are a NFT holder of this, you get certain access to this website or whatever. Like it's a way of getting into like the creators only exclusive kind of a thing. Or pairing NFT with like a physical thing. Like for example, let's just say you make an NFT instead of a car deed, instead of the car title, and then you have to have access to that NFT in order to operate the car, and then you can just transfer the NFT for the new owner. What do you think of that? The physical world intersection possibilities of NFTs.
Yeah, so first let me touch on what you were talking about first is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's called utility.
Yeah.
So, a lot of NFTs maybe are just collectible because they're cool art, but
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the bigger trends is giving your NFT utility.
Mm.
In particular, just going back to Ken's case there, his NFTs can be staked on the our planet platform, so you can use his NFTs, stake them there, and then earn their in-game currency by doing so. So having those NFTs are not only supporting a creator doing stuff, but also it gives there's utility built into those things because of that feature or be able to do that. So yeah, I mean, building in utility into NFTs is definitely something I love doing, and I really feel like that's one of the more strong suits. Yeah, it's great to collect them, the art's cool, but if they have some sort of utility, that definitely interests me a lot more, right?
Mm.
And then you can go beyond that and say, well, yeah, you can add a physical piece of utility to that as well. Like if you own this NFT, you get X reward, or it's a physical thing that you can redeem. Actually, Tops and Wax just did that recently. So
Mm-hmm.
with the recent food fight launch of the Garbage Pail Kids,
Mm.
the new series from Tops,
Yeah.
in the physical packs, they included a chance to be able to get a redemption card for digital NFT packs of the same kind of NFTs. So we're definitely seeing that. I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah. That's pretty fascinating how that's kind of going. Practically speaking, what what has been done that you know of to attach NFTs to physical things, and like what platforms use that? What platforms enable you? So like let's just say I think, oh, this is cool. I want to start doing exclusive content, exclusive live streams on this channel, but I want people with an NFT who buy my NFT to be able to get in there. Like where would I go for that now? Or is there any place to go for that yet?
I mean, there's not like a particular platform that allows
Mm-hmm.
you to do specifically like what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but there are ways to be able to do that. Meme actually did a pretty cool application or something like that where they had a special Telegram group and there was a bot that checked your wallet before you could get access to the group to see if you had the NFT. And if you don't, then you don't get access. But like doing physical things and combining that, like that's not like a platform that does that. I mean, it's something you kind of have to do on your own right now. So it is still kind of getting developed, but it's possible for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that I'm sure that's going to be a new gold rush at some point where it's just like the like accessnfts.com or something that you can not only create a cool NFT, but it comes with some sort of a base access protocol for whatever, whether it's a keys to your house or whatever. Which that's going to get a little sketchy down the road.
Well,
But like, yeah,
yeah, and that's the problem of trying to build a platform like that because you have to account for every unique item ever
hmm
created in the world. So it'll be difficult to like do something that is very specific like that, where you can just go on and say, yeah, I'm attaching a physical item using this cool tool they built. It'll be a hard thing to have. So I think that there's still creative ways that we haven't seen yet that'll come out to help with those things, but I don't think it'll be like a end all be all tool. It'll probably be limited in many ways.
yeah. And so, what platforms right now, like what cryptocurrencies, I would say, what chains do NFTs? What are the big ones so far?
Well, I mean, Ethereum obviously is the godfather, we'll say,
hmm
chain of NFTs. So there's definitely a large head start on that network. Obviously, now it's a little bit more difficult because of all the gas fees, man.
Yeah, of
That really
course.
cuts out a lot of smaller creators, smaller items, smaller dollar things. If you can't sell a $40 item if there's a $40 transaction fee to transfer it.
Yeah.
That really sucks. I don't want to pay $80, double the price essentially. So really that chain is starting to cut out smaller creators unless you're, doing high dollar stuff. It maybe doesn't make sense, or maybe you're waiting along for a layer two scaling solution, or you maybe waiting for that next EIP. I don't know, but
hmm
there are a lot of other NFT chains out there, and that make it a little bit easier. So Wax is one of my favorite ones. They've done a really good job of building their chain, and giving you tools, and then community is really good there. Flow's also doing pretty, interesting stuff, but they're really just getting started. They only have one project on it, which is
hmm
NBA Top Shots, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
And then Phantasma is also one of my favorites. They're doing some really good, work over with, being able to create NFTs and create NFTs of NFTs, which I always thought was a really good concept. Nested NFTs, we'll say.
Yeah.
And then yeah, there's a couple other ones that have recently launched. So you can start doing Binance Smart Chain NFTs because there's a bridge there to Ethereum. And then Cardano just launched NFT support, and Tezos is coming with it. It's kind of like DeFi summer, man. As soon as
hmm
everyone's like, "Oh, DeFi, all these cool tools," like everyone had to add that to their project, no matter what the hell you were working on. We gotta add DeFi, and I
hmm
feel like we're kind of seeing a little bit of that right now. All these chains were like, "Well, here's what our thing," and then all of a sudden, "Oh, but let's add NFTs to it too." Like that was never on the roadmap, but hey, get it done.
Yeah.
Because it's all hyping right now and people want to have it and use it. So I think we're seeing a lot of that too.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Ethereum has nasty fees right now, so that's a little bit of a special case. But in general, what are the kind of costs associated with minting an NFT? Is it just like some basic blockchain dust, like a transaction fee, like maybe a little bit more than a standard one, but then that's it? Or is there a more complicated process? Like, how does that work?
Once again, it just depends on what blockchain you're on. It doesn't work
hmm
the same on every blockchain. So on Ethereum, it does cost to be able to mint. And it's a transaction,
Yeah.
right? You're pushing an on-chain transaction. There's going to be a fee there.
hmm
Now, when you're on some of these marketplaces like Rarible or OpenSea, they do allow you to mint for free, but really you're not actually minting it on chain at that point. It doesn't go on chain until someone purchases it and it's sent to them essentially, and it's minted and sent kind of at the same time. So
hmm
so they're trying to kind of incentivize creators to come on there, but it's de-incentivizing, in my opinion, buyers, unless you're doing high dollar stuff and you just don't care that you're paying hundreds of dollars in fees
hmm
for a $5,000 item. And maybe a lot of people don't. They're just like, I need this, I want it, I don't care, and they'll pay the fees. And I'm not really interested in that. Like I'd rather just wait. To be honest, I'll miss out on some stuff, but I'd rather wait until they have the actual problem solved, because it's a long-term problem, and it's
hmm
until they actually get a good solution, it's going to continue to stifle a lot of what's going on there. So it just depends. Depends on what blockchain. On Wax, everything's free, so you can mint for free and transact and send things. No transactions are free. So if I send you something, there's no transaction fee there.
hmm
I can send you NFTs all day long, and I don't pay anything.
Yeah. And then you need like a Wax wallet to receive them in. And
Right, because it's its own blockchain. Yeah.
yeah, and that doesn't actually. So if they don't actually charge anything on chain, there's got to be someone. Or are they just doing that out of the goodness of their heart, as far as like wax validators or whatever?
Yeah, the goodness of their heart for sure. That's called consensus of goodness of the heart.
Yeah. Well.
No. The way that Wax is set up is obviously it's an EOS based chain, right?
Hmm.
So it's a little bit different, obviously, than Ethereum. The nodes, 21 nodes that rotate out for Wax, similar to EOS, they're incentivized in other ways. So it's not transaction fees from every transaction like that.
Yeah. So now, what about NFT security? Right now, obviously, it seems like it would be the same as like wallet security for any other kind of a platform. And so with something like Ethereum, there's quite a lot of hash rate, et cetera. If you're talking about 51% attacks, there's a lot of like hash rate and stuff behind it. It's probably pretty safe and secure. No one's going to 51% attack and like reverse all your NFT purchases or whatever.
Hmm.
But what about for some of the smaller, newer chains? Has there, because as everyone knows, expensive, the more expensive anything gets, the more money there is in trying to destroy it or attack it. And like, how many, it's like stealing the Declaration of Independence, right? It's like someone's going to try to steal some priceless artwork or collectible if there's money in it. And
Hmm.
do you know anything about security on that front? Like, first off, how secure are some of these smaller chains that are issuing kind of NFTs? And then, is there any extra kind of security of like, can you see like which wallet the NFT is associated with, and then figure out who has that and kind of attack it from there?
So what you're talking, well, okay, first address the 51% thing. That's only something that you're going to see on a proof of work chain.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to see that on other blockchains that are not built off of proof of work,
Yeah.
which are like the majority of blockchains these days. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not really a concern, I'd say, on that front. As far as just general security of things, it's just like anything else. Yeah, other wallets, like you want to make sure you have 2FA on. As far as like finding a public, yeah, like just like anything else on Ethereum, all the addresses are public. So yeah, you could see assets tied to them if you know someone's address. I don't know that there's no way of like, I mean, there's no like knowing the address doesn't give you an advantage in trying to hack them,
Mm-hmm.
really. I mean, not particularly. So it really just comes down to your own personal security, and that's why I always suggest that you have 2FA turned on for all of your stuff,
Yeah.
because that is the major detractor there, and will definitely help to keep those things secure. Now, when you talk about some of the elements that you might find that are contained within the NFT themselves, we actually saw a really funny article the other
Mm-hmm.
day. I don't know if you saw this, but on OpenSea, a collector put out this collection of like portraits, right? And people started buying them. And then he did all this to make a statement. He essentially rug pulled all the images from OpenSea and switched out the portraits with pictures of rugs. And he did it to make a statement, and I applaud him for doing so, because OpenSea does not use decentralized storage for their files. If you
Mm.
mint an NFT on a place like that, then you can go and swap out that image anytime as the creator. And so I feel like that's definitely an issue that I'm not super happy with, which is why I try and always, which is why I really have moved to minting all my stuff on places that you utilize IPFS, which
Mm.
is a decentralized storage solution. And there's no really good way for you to be able to take stuff down off of that. Not necessarily if it's directly uploaded there. So that's the advantage, I think, to having decentralized file storage backing up your
Mm.
NFTs versus it just being an arbitrary file that someone can then go switch out and stuff on your servers.
So do like most of the Ethereum based ones or Wax based or whatever, do they have IPFS for the file storage kind of thing? Or is that pretty standard to have a decentralized storage kind of thing? Or is it pretty standard to have like a centralized kind of storage thing at this point?
I don't know that there's really a standard around it. I
Mm.
mean, I think some projects have utilized it and others have. I mean, there's even projects within each blockchain that have and have not. So it
Mm.
really just comes down to how you want it to build your application.
Yeah, definitely buyer beware on that to make sure you know how it's actually being minted and like.
Right. And that artist that did that on OpenSea, he made a really great point, because I think it's when you start talking about artworks that are selling on Nifty Gateway for 10, 20, 50, $100,000, but then the artist could just go in there and be like, no, I'm going to take this art away from you, and now it's a rug.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find that to be something super appealing. I
Yeah.
mean, once again, obviously, it's not in the artist's best interest to do so, but I also think that having that security there is very important, and transparency is very important because that's one of the keystones of blockchain.
Yeah, of course.
Transparency. I want to be able to see that yes, the file connected to this NFT is stored in a decentralized manner.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. So
Yeah. So, what is your personal favorite NFT you either have or have seen so far? And what's one you really just roll your eyes at and just don't really care for?
my personal favorite NFT. That's a damn hard one, man. There's so much good stuff out there
Hmm.
in general and stuff that I've had in my collection. I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to actually say two, and so
Okay.
here's why. So I would say personally, my favorite one is the very first one I ever created. I
Hmm.
created it in 2018 in conjunction with Engine, and I was like the first YouTuber content creator guy who did that. Before there, nope, it was just for projects or development and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. But really, also too, in conjunction with that, Engine released their own NFTs, and one of them is like called a Founders Token NFT, and it gives you these benefits over long term. So they'll randomly airdrop you things or gaming assets and things like that. So that was, and it's one of those things that you had to get early on as an early supporter, and then it was locked to your wallet. So at a certain point, you can't trade it anymore. Now it's not tradable. So, but it will still give you benefits, which is great. So that's definitely one of my favorite old school ones that I've had here. As far as ones that are just complete trash, like there's been a couple celebrities that have come on board here recently, and whereas the artwork is not like super horrible, it's just I feel it's very cash grabbing. We're seeing a lot of that. I think people who are just trying to capitalize on the hype, they're not going to stick around. They're not really going to be doing this stuff in the future. They're trying to cash in because they see that there's a hype around it, and they're not part of the community. They're not trying to be involved. They don't care. They're not trying to highlight other artists or help people to develop the scene. They don't, basically it's just there for money. So there's a lot of those popping up right now. Those are definitely my unfavorites.
Yeah, that's for sure. As with everything, this kind of reminds me of like no one knew Bitcoin would be valuable, so there wasn't like you know, Bitcoin came out after a while, it started to get value and notoriety or whatever. And then I remember the first the altcoin boom, or as I would call it, like the shitcoin boom, because it was a lot of just let's and like things like not trying to step on anyone's toes by saying it, but things like Litecoin and Dogecoin are ones that kind of came out of that era and still exist today. But that they basically did the exact same thing, but tweaked some parameters and were like different. No. And then there was a million. That was kind of like the big altcoin wave where like every coin is like the same but a little bit different. And then that went, but then some good projects remained out of that. And then you go to the ICO boom, where there was just like everyone was throwing tokens around, everyone's doing token sales, and then most of that turned out to be horrible scam type, just bad idea stuff. But then there was a few good things that came out of that, and the concept of an ICO is still pretty big. And then you have the DeFi boom, where it's probably just like, how many different like edible item based yield farms are there going to be built on top of other edible item yield farms over and over? How many people are going to lose money on that whole thing when it crashes? But there's still like a good layer of good stuff. And then we're probably in that with the NFTs now, where it's starting to become the gold rush, and people are making everything. Most of it's just not going to be worth very much in a little bit of time. But there is like something really cool and at the core of this that's going to persist and be part of this. What do you think about so obviously NFTs are the future of collectibles to a certain extent. What do you think about? Do you think they will be universal as far as collectibles in the future? And the reason I'm asking is, for example, I bought a missed opportunity. I didn't wear it today, but I bought a T-shirt from Decent. It was one of like the Free Ross collection or whatever, and they had an option to like come with an NFT with it, and I didn't do that option for whatever reason. I guess I was still like in boomer mindset of just like, I don't want another thing, eh. But so there's a lot of items that have, NFTs that will have NFTs associated with the physical item. And for
Mm.
example, this is like a really rare limited edition Dogecoin pillow. Like it's very hard to find these days. I do not have an NFT on it. Um, do
So
you?
so I could just go copy that pattern right now and make me a pillow the same way, and you'd never be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no. authenticity behind it, other than like, oh yeah, I remember back then. I swear you see it in all my videos. It's been around forever, kind of thing. Uh, but do you think that all physical collectibles will start to have NFTs attached to them, or will some people just still not NFT their physical one of a kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a mix of things for a long time, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who just don't care or even know what's going on in our industry. It's a very small niche right there. As much as we're seeing it like blow up,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of people that are still really in this and like knowing about it and wanting it is still incredibly small compared to like every asset class ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we're still incredibly early on, and yeah, we'll see more and more people getting into it. But just like anything else, there's these technology overlaps, right? There's
Yeah.
still old people who don't even know how to use a cell phone.
Yeah, I've met some of them. In fact, I've had people try to get me bring like an old like IBM laptop, being like, "Can I get crypto on this?" And I'm just like, "Oh, it doesn't have internet." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
this will be hard."
So there'll always be a disparity there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Where do I send people? Show your stuff real quick.
So you can find all things CryptoStache on my website, cryptostache,
Mm-hmm.
like the end of mustache .com. So everything's there, all my articles that I've written, all the videos I've done, all the links to all the things. I do my live streaming on Theta and upload videos to YouTube, and I'm very active on Twitter.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks a bunch for hanging out, and hopefully a lot of people are a lot more mind blown about NFTs after this.